Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristen, and in today's video, I will be talking through the 4 and 5-star books that I have read so far in 2021. It has been a minute since I have uploaded a video for y'all, and I am so sorry, but I had to get my future figured out. I had to get my career plan going, but I am so happy to announce that I will be getting a master's in public health starting this fall, 2-year program, and then I'm gonna be 2 degreed. You know, I had a lot of thought and reflection on what I wanted to do with my life, the impact I wanted to make on this world and all that kind of stuff, and it just made sense that a master's in public health is where I needed to go next. For those who have already congratulated me, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It makes me so happy to know that I have y'all supporting me through all my journeys in life, really, from my books to my career. It just makes me feel so happy, so thank you. But let's talk about the books, our favorite thing to talk about, right? I have read 20 books this year, and out of the 20, 11 of those I have either rated a 4, a 4.5, or a 5-star. I haven't done a wrap-up video yet in 2021, so I just thought it would be perfect time to talk about some of my favorite reads of 2021 thus far. The first book that I read that I rated a 5-star in the year 2021 was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the second book in the Brown Sisters companion series. The first book, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, obviously followed Chloe Brown, and then this one we're following Dani Brown. And the third and final book that just came out this month, After Age Eve Brown, follows Eve Brown. And basically this book involves the trope of fake dating. Dani Brown decides to fake date her friend Zafir after a video of him rescuing her from an elevator goes viral. I absolutely adored this book, especially because in this one, the male love interest, Zafir's character, is the more romantic one. He's the one that was out here reading the smutty romantic books. And then we have Dani Brown, who is not really trying to be in a relationship. She just wants to like have sex with men and have one-night stands and be free. Because of her relationships in the past, she just doesn't think that relationships are for her until obviously she meets Zafir, who she has already had her eyes set on, who she thought was cute. They were crushing on each other. Fake dating to lovers is the trope here, and it was done very well. I loved the banter between Zafir and Dani. They are actually perfect matches for each other. There is representation of anxiety in this book. Zafir deals with anxiety from something that happened in his past. It is not just mentioned and moved on. We are focused on that part of Zafir's personality, and we understand why he's anxious. The conflict in this book is definitely so much better than how the conflict was done in Chloe Brown, because in Chloe Brown, it was very much so miscommunication. And the conflict in Dani Brown is definitely the fact that they're fake dating. You know, if you know what I mean about what conflict can come from that, then that's the conflict that happens in this book. So those are some of the main reasons why I enjoyed Dani Brown's book. I am excited to read Eve Brown's book. I'm probably going to listen to the audiobook on Scribd pretty soon, and then I'll have officially read all 3 of the Brown sisters romantic stories. The next book that I'm going to talk about is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, which I rated a 4-star. In this book, we follow Scylla Lane, who is about 30 years old, and she has Asperger's, and the only thing that's on her mind is analytical, logistical things at all times, but she wants to learn how to love. She wants to learn how to kiss. She wants to learn how to do all the romantic things. So she decides to hire an escort, Michael, to help her with all these things. I thought that the representation of Asperger's and autism was done really well. And I think this story was just so clever and unique to have a character like Stella who has Asperger's and who doesn't really know how to love because of her condition. Pairing that with an escort, someone you don't even think about when you're like, oh, who am I gonna go fall in love with? Unfortunately, the conflict in this book was miscommunication, and that's my absolutely least favorite trope in romance books, especially when we're dealing with like 30-some-year-olds. I'm just like, can people learn how to communicate and not assume, and when they make a mistake to go talk to the person and correct the mistake or figure out what went wrong instead of just leaving each other alone, ignoring each other, saying goodbye, all this dramatic stuff that happens in romance books. But other than that, I just love the representation so much and the uniqueness of the story that I just had to give it a 4 stars anyway. The next 2 books that I'm going to talk about are going to come to absolutely no surprise to nobody, because I talk about these books all the time, my love for them, my favorite books, all that kind of stuff. And yes, you guessed it, it is The Hate You Give, and Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. The Hate You Give was a reread for me because I read it back in 2018 and it became my favorite book at that time. And I decided to give it a reread to prepare myself for Concrete Rose release back in January. So this time I listened to it on audiobook and it still hit the same. In this book, we are following 16-year-old star Carter, who unfortunately witnesses the murder of her best friend by the hands of a cop. His death makes the national headlines and people begin calling him a thug and that he deserved to die because he was dealing drugs or whatever the case may be. Protests, rallies break out, and Star is determining if she wants her name out there as the witness and to help her community out, or if she wants to stay hidden behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff for her own safety. When I read this the first time, it just hit me really hard because this is one of the most realistic depictions of what it means to be Black in America. Since then, I read several other books that deal with these topics and they just are not as realistic. They don't hit as hard for me. They don't stick with me as long as this book has stuck with me. And this is the perfect book to me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this book. Now, Concrete Rose is my new favorite. Back when I read it in January, I absolutely fell in love with this book. And I did do a book review on this book specifically on my channel that I will link above and below. So if you haven't checked it out yet, then please do so. It is spoiler free. I would give this a 6 out of 5 stars. Anything more than a 5 stars, I would give this book because that's what it deserves. I enjoyed this book more than I liked The Hate You Give, and I already thought The Hate You Give was perfect. In this book, we are following Maverick Carter, Star's dad, when he is 17 years old. So this is the prequel to The Hate You Give, and we are with Maverick when he is navigating becoming a father at 17 years old, how he's going to provide for his family if he wants to go the drug route because his dad is a drug legend, or if he wants to go the straight way and like get a job and actually earn the money in a legal way to provide for his family. And then dealing with, you know, the baby mamas and his family, his mom, grief, people are dying. Like, there's just so much going on in this book that it almost made me cry. And we all know that I don't cry in books, so this book almost made me cry. It was that real. I felt for Maverick, a fictional character. I just felt for him and his family, and he's just a very mature and good person. I appreciate Angie Thomas bringing this perspective and this character into the fictional and the literary world because Maverick's story deserves to be told. Star's stories deserve to be told. Khalil's story deserves to be told. The next book I'm going to talk about is a book that I rated a 4.5 stars, and it's a book that many people love. Many people have been reading recently because the 4th book in the series has recently came out, and so people have been reading it. And it's going to be A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, which is the 2nd book in the ACOTAR series. A Court of Thorns and Roses, or ACOTAR, is a Beauty and the Beast retelling mainly that obviously goes far and beyond what Beauty and the Beast tackles. And so this is the 2nd book in that series. We're still following Feyre as the main voice in this book. This also happens to be my favorite book of the series so far. I am in the middle of reading A Court of Silver Flames right now, so who knows, maybe that one will be higher than this one. But as I haven't finished that one yet, A Court of Mist and Fury is my favorite one in the series so far. What I loved about this book specifically was the inner circle, and that's on period, right? Like, we have Rhysand, we have Feyre, Mor, Cassian, Az, Amren. Their friend group is perfection. I loved reading about all the characters and hearing all their banter, all the interactions between this group of friends and family, you know? I'm more so a plot-driven person when reading books, not necessarily a character person. I love reading interactions between friend groups, but sometimes I'm like, where's the action? Like, let's get to the plot. Let's get to the main point of this book. But in Asimov, I definitely was more like, I need more inner circle scenes. I need them to be together. Of course, I love Rhysand and Feyre as a couple. There were so many plot twists at the end, the last like 100 or so pages of Asimov, which definitely helped with my 4.5 star rating. This book is just perfection. All the scenes, the steamy scenes between Rhysand and Feyre, the inner circle scenes. Next, I'm going to talk about The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, which I rated a 4.5 stars. And I do have a reading vlog on this book that I will again link above and below. So please make sure you go check that out if you haven't already, because I absolutely loved this book. In this one, we are following 16-year-old Dika who is getting ready to participate in the blood ceremony of her village to determine if she will become an official member of her village. And in order to do this, her blood must bleed red. But unfortunately, her blood runs gold on the day of this ceremony, which means that she is impure, which means that she is a demon. She has demons inside her. So she is imprisoned and she is tortured. All these awful things happen to her until a mysterious woman comes to her cell and offers her the chance to leave the village, to keep her life, and to go train with other women like her, the Alakis, what they're called. They're near immortals who have rare gifts, and they are the only ones that can stop the Empire's greatest threat. So like the first 3 to 5 chapters of this book were absolutely enthralling and engaging, and I just wanted to keep flipping the dang pages, okay? And Namina Forna makes it very clear that the point of her book is to break down the patriarchy. And in the world that she has, patriarchy is very high, it is at its highest. The men are in charge and the women are very much at the bottom. They are submissive to anything and everything the men say and are about. I thought again that the beginning was absolutely fantastic. The ending was absolutely fantastic as well, but the middle kind of lagged. It didn't really lag in terms of plot. There was still enough going on to keep you engaged. For example, when Dika got to the training center to be trained with the other Alaki women before they went and faced the Empire's greatest threat and all that kind of stuff, it became kind of stagnant. It was very much like, oh, they trained for the day and then they went to sleep and then they woke up and they did it again. There wasn't much more to that. So the middle kind of dragged in that aspect. There wasn't a lot of world building or banter going on between the characters that would make it even more better, you know? So that's why I had to give it a 4.5 stars. I was debating between a 4 and a 4.5, but at the end of the day, I loved the beginning and the end so much that I just bumped it up that extra 0.5. Next, I read Sadie by Courtney Summers, and I also gave that a 4.5 stars. And if you ever decide to read Sadie, I would definitely go with the audiobook route, because the audiobook is set like a podcast. Like there's episodes, there's music, there's lots of segments within the podcast. It doesn't feel like you're listening to a book. It feels like you're just listening to like a murder mystery podcast on your way to work type thing. So it was just very creative and very unique in my opinion. But the basis of the story, we are following Sadie, who has had a very tough life. Her mother really wasn't around while she was growing up, and so Sadie was kind of the main person raising her younger sister Maddie. But one day Maddie is found dead, and Sadie is determined to figure out what happened, who killed her sister. And so Sadie kind of leaves home and backtracks all of Maddie's steps so that she can figure out this mystery. At the same time, Wes McCrae, he's a radio personality, hears about the story of Sadie and Maddie and decides to investigate himself. So this again was such a great story. I love listening to mystery thrillers on audiobook. There are trigger warnings in this book of child abuse, rape, molestation, and pedophilia, among others, I'm sure. It was very obvious that Sadie loved her sister so much, and she wasn't gonna let anyone or anything stop her from figuring out who killed her sister. She had leads she was going off of. She made dangerous and risky decisions. She put herself in the face of danger many times because she just had to know what happened to her younger sister. When I read mysteries and thrillers, I don't necessarily want a happy ending depending on like what the mystery was, you know? In this case, I didn't want a happy ending and we didn't get a happy ending. So I'm very happy about that. Again, if you haven't read it, read that audiobook because it's really, really good. I'm just gonna hold up the next book. Like it doesn't even need an introduction. We already know that I gave it a 5 stars. Amari and the Night Brothers by Bibi Alston. Yes, this was the absolute cutest story. Jaleesa is not lying when she's screaming at y'all to read this book because you need to read it. Like there's just no excuse. I don't care if you don't read middle grade. I don't care if you strictly read adult books. I don't care if you strictly read romance books. You need to read Amari and the Night Brothers because it is that good. It is that wholesome. And it's just that perfect, you know? Like, again, this is another perfect book here. Nothing wrong with this. Just like my Angie Thomas books, which she is blurbed here. So good sign, right? I really enjoyed Amari and her love for her brother Quentin. The basis of the story is that her older brother Quentin went missing and he was deemed dead, and that's what everybody just believes, like, oh honey, he's dead, like he's not coming back. But Amari just does not believe that her brother is dead, and she is determined to figure out his story and soon she discovers that her brother was involved in a bunch of magical things, and Amari immerses herself in this magical world. All the supernatural creatures that you can think of are included in this book. Phoebe Austin did an amazing job with the world building. I can imagine the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. I could imagine everything that she was seeing when she was going to the different rooms on these elevators, which if you don't know about the elevators, you will come to love the elevators that are a big part of this book. Also, it does a good job with talking about bullies and how to stay strong against those who are bullying you and things. And I think that's definitely an important thing to write in a middle grade book. Amari is definitely getting bullied a bunch in this book, but she stays strong. She knows who she is. She has her supportive friends by her side during these episodes. If you haven't read this book, what are you doing? Please pick up Amari and the Night Brothers because it's just so wholesome, and we all need a good, wholesome, quick read full of all the emotions in this book: betrayal, bullying, happiness, sadness. Everything's in this book. I can't wait to reread this book, so please get Amari and the Night Brothers. All right, y'all, 3 more books to talk about. These are gonna be 4-star books, each and every one of them. The first of this last trio is Truth or Dare by Danielle Allen, which I read during our most recent 24-hour readathon. You know I love a good steamy book, you know, with lots of smut, lots of it, every other page, right? And that's what Truth or Dare gave me. So if that's what you want, then you got it. Read it. It's short. It's only a little bit over 100 pages, so you can knock that out in an hour and be done and be satisfied. In this book, we're following a group of friends who met in college and they stayed best friends into their 30s. And now one of the friends are getting married. And so it's time for the wedding. Everybody is invited, of course. In college, they used to play a lot of Truth or Dare. That was their thing. They bring that back at their wedding. And 2 of the characters there, they're dared to kiss each other, do all these things with each other, and boom, smut. That's all you need to know about this book. So I'm definitely gonna read some more Danielle Allen because if that's what she's writing about, if that's what she's on, I want more of it. Next, we have Shadow Kiss by Rochelle Mead, which is the 3rd book in the Vampire Academy series, which again, I gave it 4 stars. I wasn't really expecting to give this book a 4 stars because, you know, this is a very old book. I'm doing my reread / read for the first time because I can't remember what happened in the book. So you know how that goes. Like, it's a reread, but it's not really a reread. Anyways, yes, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars because the ending, the last 100 pages or so of this book, shook me. I was not ready for it. Rochelle Mead for sure knows how to write an ending, because also in book 2, Frostbite, the ending got me, okay? Like, it really shook my bones. And that's the same thing that happened in Shadow Kiss. The only thing that gets me with the Vampire Academy books is the fact that Rose is 17 years old and Dimitri is like 24 or something like that. And I'm just like, you couldn't have written Rose 18? She doesn't turn 18 until the end of this book, book 3. And there's things that happen in the first 3 books that I'm just like, yo, she is 17. What is happening here? She's 18 years old now, so hopefully whatever happens in the next 3 books in this series, like, it'll be okay because she's of age. Other than that, this is a great throwback if you just need something quick and easy and fun to read. I really enjoyed the series overall. The last book I'm going to talk about is my most recent read, and that is Too Good to Be True by Carola Levering. It was just released on the 2nd of this month, so I read it pretty much right after it was released, which was really cool. And I found the audiobook on Hoopla, so I was able to listen to that. And Too Good to Be True, we are following 3 different narrators and they're all unreliable, which is one of my favorite things to read about in mysteries because it's like, who's telling the truth? What is really going on? And that definitely took me there in this book. Sky Starling meets Burke Michaels and they end up falling in love, getting engaged, which makes Sky so happy because she suffers from OCD. She really didn't think anybody would love her to the point of wanting to marry her because of her compulsions that she goes through. That started after the death of her mother when she was, I think, 12 years old. And another perspective, we are following Burke Michaels, who is the fiance of Sky Starling. And then a third perspective that we have is Heather Michaels, who dated Burke when they were teenagers, because in Burke's perspective, he is an adult, I think in his 40s, Sky is in her 20s in her perspective, and then in Heather's perspective is when they were teenagers and Heather and Burke were dating each other then. We're getting a bunch of timelines that end up making sense as it goes. The plot twist, once we figured out what was actually happening in this book, really got to me. I was really sitting in my car driving to work like, what? It was on its way to looking like a 4.5/5 stars for me. But then the ending, like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Sadie, not every book needs a happy ending, and so I just didn't like the way that this book ended. My overall thoughts, all I'm gonna say is that money is a drug. Money is gonna make people do some out-of-pocket, crazy, wild things. Definitely recommend Too Good to Be True though. You should definitely read the book. It is worth your time, and it's a new release. So that wraps up the 11 out of the 20 books that I have read this year that I've rated a 4-star, a 4.5 star, or a 5-star. I've only rated 4 books out of my 20 of 5 stars. I'm trying to be more critical with the books that I read and give 5 stars to books that I genuinely enjoyed and thought that was an absolute perfect novel. The Hate You Give, Concrete Rose, and Amari. And I gave Take a Hint, Dani Brown a 5 star as well. I'm trying to take the time more to be critical with what I read, just so that I can figure out what my favorite books actually are. Because when people ask me, what's my favorite book? I used to be like, I don't know what my favorite book is. I don't really have a favorite book, but now I'm over here like Concrete Rose, The Hate You Give, Amari and the Night Brothers, you know, like I have answers now, and that makes me very happy, especially when people then go and either buy or get the book from the library because they know that it's my favorite book or a book that I really enjoyed. I'm very happy with what I've read this year, and I'm extremely excited to read all the other books that I have on my list and all the books that I have back here that have not been touched yet and not been given love and not been given a review. But that's gonna be all from me today, guys. Thank you for watching. I'm excited to be back in this business and making some more content for y'all. Got a reading vlog coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. Readathons happening at the end of the month still. If you made it to the end of this video, please comment down below a star emoji, since we're talking about giving star ratings to the books that I've read so far this year. If you like this video, please give it a big like. Comment down below, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and turn on your notification bell so that you're notified every time I upload a new video. And I will see y'all in my next video. Bye!